Tonight's meeting is the introduction for parents on our team. Um, so let's see, what are we going to cover? So we're going to talk about what is Spectrum, what we do, who are we? So I'll introduce myself, all that. What is FRC? So that's the competition that we compete in. What does being on the team do? What do our team members do? What do we accomplish? Kind of an overview of a normal FRC season. And then we'll talk a lot about, I know we'll have a lot of questions about what this season looks like. Okay, so what is Spectrum? So Spectrum is the engineering team for St. Agnes Academy and Straight Jesuit College Prep. So we are joint team with both schools, similar to like band and choir, how they operate. Our formal mission statement is in that purple box there. But the biggest thing is our goal is to help make the students on our team into awesome people, give them very good and positive experiences, and show them ways that they can use their knowledge, skills, abilities to help the rest of the world and go and have careers and get more education, whatever they want to do, but just become better people. That's a lot of what we're trying to figure out, and we do a lot of that through the robot and the robotics competition that we participate in. Okay, so some more kind of summary of what we do. Promote a lot of growth within our team members. So we take wherever the student starts is totally fine. Like there's no experience necessary with anything that we've done before, and we try to find things that they're interested in, find things that we can get them excited about. We want our students to be passionate about what we're doing and put in a lot of effort when they can. And so that they can actually do something and show that if you put in a lot of effort, if you work hard, you can get rewards and accomplish something really cool at the end of it. And a lot of that is through the competition that we do. So we do design, develop, and build robots. So we do it for a high school robotics competition. We do it in a build space robotics lab that we have on the Straight Jesuit campus with a full computer lab. We used to build at St. Agnes, but then we got a new space at Straight, so we moved over there. There's a lot of skill building. A lot of people think it's just math and science, but that is not anywhere close to what our team just does. So there's a lot of different areas that we'll hit on tonight and talk about in different ways, but it's a lot more than just either the tool use or the math or the science. There's so much more that goes into being a part and being on the team. There's a lot of collaborating with other schools. So there's a ton of learning to do work on a team, a lot of the same things students and reasons why team sports are so useful. A lot of that we try to get and build up on our team as well. And we also do a lot to make our community stronger, both in our schools and the greater Houston community and the world community of STEM and educational robotics. There are a lot of career opportunities in STEM that FIRST can expose students to. So we want to try to explain what engineering is. Like a lot of students know that maybe they want to be an engineer, maybe they even have parents who are engineers, but they don't really know the different fields or what engineering kind of does or what you do on a day-to-day and how it all works. So we try to give them some of the hands-on experience. We're not going to replace an engineering degree by any means, nothing close to that. We're intentionally not doing that, right? We don't want to scare anyone off. We want to make it as accessible and fun and enjoyable as possible for the students. We work on a lot of communication skills. There's a ton of things we have to do where we're both inside the team, we're communicating together, but also externally, we're presenting our robot and what the team does to judges, where we help other teams. So we produce a lot of documentation and videos to help other teams be better at this and educate them. There's a lot of local outreach experiences where we go to events and things, different museums, Comic Palooza. There's all sorts of things. We'll talk about a few later. Potential internships and connections that they meet with some groups that work with us and teams and adults and engineers from other teams. There's a lot of people that they meet and get connections with. There's a lot of scholarship opportunities that exist too from FIRST, the organization head of what we do, which we'll talk about here shortly. Okay, so who are we? So I'm Alan Gregory. I'm the head coach for the team. This is my 19th season now. So I started when I was a high school student in 2003 in Central Texas. I went to Shoemaker High School out near Fort Hood. I came to Houston to go to Rice University and I got my bachelor's there. And while at Rice, I helped start a first robotics competition team at Lamar High School. So I was with them for 4 years until the year after I graduated. For a year, I did AmeriCorps Vista with the Houston Food Bank. So I helped the Houston Food Bank when they were transitioning to the new, much bigger facility out at I-10 and Beltway 8. And then in the fall of 2011, I got the opportunity to join up with St. Agnes Academy and become a St. Agnes Academy employee as the coach for the engineering team. And I've been doing that ever since. So depending on the time and point in my life, I've had other things that I do as well, but my main focus and the thing I am most proud of and the thing I put the most effort into is running this team. I am incredibly passionate about it. I don't teach other classes. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. I love working with students and getting them excited and passionate about engineering and science and STEM and doing something really cool when they put a lot of effort into it. I also do a lot with robotics competitions and educational robotics around the world. So I'm a lead robot inspector for the competition that we participate in. So I help make sure all the robots are safe and fair and aren't going to hurt anybody and meet all the rules and all those things. And I help kind of write the rules for future seasons and things on occasion and that type of stuff. For a different robotics competition called VEX, I'm one of the head referees. So I'm like the somewhat lead head referee for the Houston area. I've somewhat given up that position in the last couple of years, but for a while I was the main one. And then I also help head ref the World Championship at VEX whenever my schedule allows. And then I also help with First Global, which is almost like the Robot Olympics, where they take a single team from each country. They compete in a different robot event. And so I've been to Mexico City to help with that, and to Dubai to help with that as well. We do have a couple other adults who help with the team. So Sue-Ann is on the call.
Hi there.
So Sue-Ann is a mentor who helps us with media and awards and communication and logistics. She is a former parent, so just like you all, she had a student on the team who graduated in
3 years ago.
2017, something like that. So yeah, a while ago, but now she has just stuck around and is invaluable to helping do all the sorts of things that we do on the team. We have 2 straight faculty advisors. I can't see them. I don't think either of them are on the call tonight. Jacob Walker and Damon Tran are both instructors at Strake who help us with a lot of the logistics and organization, just getting things through Strake administration and going to events and things like that is their main function. They'll help with some other stuff too. But yeah, those are basically the 4 main adults, but we also do have some other parents who help with trips and logistics and things too, and we'll talk about ways that if you're interested, you can help the team as well later on. Okay. As for students, we have there's no like application process or anything. So anyone who wants to be on the team who is a student at Strake Jesuit or St. Agnes is allowed to join. People can join at any time. There's no like fixed dates. Our goal is to get people exposed and interested and curious about what we're doing and hopefully excited about it as well. So whatever we can do to allow that to work, we're going to try to remove any barrier we can to them getting interested and getting on the team. No experience or abilities are required. We will use we'll use abilities that people have. If people have been doing all sorts of stuff, like we have students who come in who have either been on robot teams at their middle school before. We have students who come in and are really interested in computers or have done things similar to what we're doing, programming, whatever, and that's great. We also have students who have come in and don't know which way to turn a screw, and we'll still work with them and get them to being functional, awesome people on a robot team and doing what they're interested in doing through their time on the team. Our team is very, very flexible with time. We know it's very hard to be a high school student these days. You almost always have multiple things going on. There are some of our students where the robot team is their first priority, and that's awesome. And those students learn a ton, and what they put in, they get a lot out of it. We also have students where it's not, where they are a part of sports that they really care about, or band or choir or other clubs, and that's fine too. We understand people are doing different things. But we will say you definitely get what you put in. So being able to find a schedule that works and putting in effort and understanding what's happening, you'll get more out of it when they actually put in more time, and get curious and start investigating and learning on their own, and not just doing kind of the minimum. But if all they want to do is the minimum and that's where they're at right now, that's fine too, and we'll work with them and try to get them excited as we can. We do want them to hopefully learn and help make the team better. We rarely have any issues where we've ever had to not have someone on the team before or anything. I can't imagine getting to that point with any of our students, but if we did, we'd figure it out. But the vast majority of times, we're a very good group of students who all are excited about what we're doing, and working on the project together. And we have a lot of fun and enjoy being on a team together. Okay. The students are the main driving factors of our team. Like without them, they started the team. So brief history, back in before I was part of the team in 2010, students from both schools decided they wanted to have a FIRST robotics competition team. They convinced the administrations to do so. They convinced teachers to help that first year. They got the schools to help with the money and funds to do it. And they got a team together. They weren't super successful that first year because no one had done anything quite like this before. And so when I came in the second year, I was able to help kind of nurture it and build it a little bit more. But the students were leading the way the entire time. And that's everything we have been able to accomplish is because the students, we've had really passionate and dedicated students who have put a lot of work to get our team to where it is now. Okay, so what is this FRC thing I keep talking about? So we're going to break down kind of what all of this means. But the way I describe FRC in one paragraph is the FIRST robotics competition program is where teams of students and mentors from around the world are given a new game challenge each season. They must design, build, and operate a robot to compete with and against other teams to win matches, events, and awards, while embracing the philosophies of gracious professionalism and cooperation. More than robots, FRC teams work to expand STEM opportunities and address other community needs. So kind of breaking down what each of these things is talking about. FIRST robotics competition, most commonly known as FRC, is one of several programs run by FIRST. So FIRST is for inspiration and recognition of science technology. It was started, FRC started back in 1992. Dean Kamen, who invented the Segway, like that first kind of like scooter that you could tilt forward and drive along. He's an inventor for insulin pumps, robotic arms, a bunch of mostly healthcare related things. This company DECA does a lot of things. And he started FIRST back in 1989, 1990, somewhere in there. And then he partnered with Woody Flowers, who we'll talk about in just a second, to start FRC in 1992. FIRST vision is to transform our culture. So it's more about getting students excited about science technology in the same way that our culture is really easily gets students excited about sports, right? It's very, very simple to get people excited about basketball and football or volleyball, whatever, and show those people as heroes. But we really want to make sure students can also see that they can do something really cool by using science technology and being able to become a professional engineer, scientist, use technology in their careers, that sort of thing. Okay. In FRC, mentors and students work together. So it's not just a student competition. So it is mentors and students working side by side, which is one of the biggest parts of it. So the challenges and the things we have to do in FRC are intentionally hard enough to where it's not like, oh, you have an engineer, therefore you just know the answer to the problem. The problems that we give in FRC are so hard that there's not just one right way to do it. The mentors and students have to work together to develop solutions, figure out how best to design something, how best to build something, how best to use their resources to actually accomplish the task. The students are the ones who drive and operate the robot during the match. There are coaches on the field who can be a student or an adult, similar to how you'd have a high school basketball coach on the sidelines telling the players what to do. The teams aren't just from any one school. So in most sports, it's always students just from that one school. In FRC, you'll have schools be made up or have teams be built in lots of a variety of different ways. So like our situation where we're a combination of two schools, you'll also have some teams who are the combination of entire school districts. There's also community groups. So there's like Girl Scout teams, 4-H teams, teams from certain companies where they'll start a team and have students come from the population. There are people who just start teams as a community group and they just build out of someone's garage or something. There's all sorts of ways to be an FRC team, not just school-based teams. The program is quite large, so we were almost 4,000 teams in 2020 from 34 different countries. One of the main principles of FRC is that we get a different game challenge each year, so we're not reusing the same robot each year. We have a different one, and we have to completely redesign what we're doing and solve a bunch of new challenges each season. That is mostly true this season because of COVID. Our last season was cut short. We normally compete in March and April, so we got one competition right at the beginning of March, and then the season was canceled. So this coming season, they are repeating basically the same game because we didn't actually finish that season. So they extended the 20 and 21 season to be happen over 2 years. Design, build, and operate a robot. So we do have to design a new robot each year. The rules for the robot change, so like the size requirements, how far they can expand after the match. There's all sorts of very specific rules for the robot each season, and they change. Some of them stay kind of the same, but you're never sure what's going to until that rule book is announced at the beginning of the year. Most of the match, the robot is driven, so it's not like these robots have to be completely autonomous and do everything on their own. The drivers do have like basically game pads, and they're able to move the robots around. But there is programming, and we do a lot to make the job of the drivers a lot simpler. So there's a lot of automation that happens inside of it, even though the drivers or an operator are pushing in buttons and moving the joysticks. The robot is doing a lot of work for it to make it all happen faster and more efficient. One of the interesting things about FRC is that the competition isn't just one school versus or one team versus another team. We have what are called alliances. So during each match, there are 6 robots on the field at one time, divided into 2 alliances. So there's a red and a blue alliance. So in each of these matches, our robot, so this was the match from 2016, our robot is here in the farthest right. And we were partnered with 2 other robots from different schools, different groups of people who, different people who built them for this match. And we were against 3 other teams. And so all of that during most of the event are just random selections by a computer that randomly sets up all the matches. So there's never a time where you're just against everybody else. You're often partnered with them or against them. So you're always trying to make sure people are working well and that everyone at the event is having a good time. So it's never, it's not nearly it's very, very competitive, but it's not the same type of competition that you often see in sports where it's win at all costs. We're always trying to win fairly, and we're also trying to help all the other teams at the event have a really good competition as well. Matches are all about 2.5 minutes, so each match is pretty short, but you'll have multiple at an event. So we'll have like 12 qualification matches, and then there's an entire playoff structure. The teams that win the playoff tournament, so there's a full alliance of 3 robots will actually win the playoff tournament, and those will be the winners of the event. And then there are also awards given out at the event for a whole host of different attributes, from how the robot is designed, how the robot performs, and also team attributes. So what the team does at the event and what the team does outside of the event. So there's awards for outreach and what you do to help other FRC teams and what you do to help your community as well. All right, so we mentioned Woody Flowers a little while ago. Dr. Woody Flowers was incredibly important to the idea of competing with robots. So he was one of the co-founders of FRC, and he created 2 of these philosophies. But before his time in FRC, he was a MIT professor, and in the 70s, he started a class, MIT 270. That's fine. So then in that class, he basically had students work on projects where they were competing, building mechanical contraptions in the 70s that eventually evolved into robots as we got into the late 80s. And so before that, you didn't really have anyone competing with robots or devices or any sort of mechanical machines at all, really. So he's basically known as the grandfather of competitive robotics. So anything from BattleBots and all of the different educational robotics competitions all get traced back to him and his class at FRC. He very sadly passed away in 2019, but he was a very, very great man who I've had the pleasure to know a little bit, and was influential in the sport greatly in what we do. Two of the main things he brought to the competition were the ideas of gracious professionalism, which is understanding that the competition is kind of bigger than just what you're doing and trying to win or lose. So you embrace competition, and like, I mean, we are very, very competitive. We all really do want to win. There's a lot of work that goes into it. We put a ton of effort into it, but we're also incredibly empathetic and understanding that all of the teams and everyone at the event, volunteers included, fans, everyone, there's a much bigger mission in trying to make sure that we're all excited and that the culture and ideas of what we're doing keep going forward. Also cooperation, which is cooperating and competing at the same time. There's a ton of resource sharing in FRC. So we produce guides and things to help other teams. At events, we're constantly loaning out parts or helping teams fix their robot or find bugs in their programming or fix things and make their robots better. If we need something, we know there's a ton of teams we can go ask for help, ask for parts, whatever we need. So there's a ton of sharing. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's trying to help everybody else do better. Another big part of our team that isn't just the competition is what we do the rest of the year. So the competition is largely just the second semester is the main actual competition part of it in most seasons. Then a lot of the rest of the time, in addition to training and doing projects internal to the team and things, we're also doing a lot to help our community as much as we can. So there's a lot of outreach and community activities. We will, one of our big projects here on the left is called Construction, where the students will get about 3,000 cans donated from some company. HEB has been a donor for the last couple of years. And then they will design a full can sculpture in the 3D modeling program, the same one that we use to design a robot. They will lay it all out in the CAD program, and then they will actually construct it on a day, and then all the cans get donated to the Houston Food Bank. So it's a way that they're able to use their skills to raise awareness for hunger and get a lot of cans donated and a lot of food donated as well. Other things we do, we've had groups come into the lab. So this was a Cub Scout group we had come in. We'll also take our robot to a large amount of demonstrations, like I mentioned earlier. So we'll do Comic Palooza every year, the big comic book festival. We've gone to most of the museums in Houston, the Science Museum, Children's Museum, Aircraft Museum, all sorts of ones like that. We've gone to multiple of the sporting events. We've been to Minute Maid Park for an Astros game. We used to do the Texas Bowl college football game. So a lot of things like that. We'll have different demonstrations and just introducing people to the idea of educational robots who may have never seen it before. We also teach a lot of courses and partner with organizations to bring robots to some of the camps and things that they put on. Every summer, we'll hold a course at the Boys and Girls Club in Spring Branch, where for 2 weeks our students are out there teaching students how to program much smaller robots and teaching them a lot of the concept of robots at an early age. That's also how a lot of our students get their senior service hours, is working at that 2-week course. But we'll also do smaller courses with different groups. We partnered with the Microsoft store before, a couple other camps that people put on and things, and we'll go and teach robots there. Some of the core values from the actual first competition, a lot of these are similar ones that we embrace as well. Trying to make sure that what we're doing is fun and enjoyable, but also a really positive experience for all of our students. Okay, so this is more of an FAQ page. So why are we Spectrum, and what is this 3847 thing about? So every team in FRC is assigned a number. When you register, you can basically think of it kind of like the number on the side of a race car. So it's basically just an easy way for us to identify teams and make sure we know which team we're talking about. So teams can kind of change their name freely whenever they want, and some teams do. We don't, but some teams do. But their number stays the same for the entire time they're in the program. And roughly, you can use number to somewhat determine team age. So teams with very low numbers, there's teams like 118 or 148, they've been around for a very long time. 3847 was formed in 2011. Teams that were formed in 2020 are in the 8,000 range. So even though there's only 4,000 teams, or about 4,000 teams currently competing, we've assigned over 8,000 numbers. So a lot of teams have, there's some blocks of numbers that were never assigned for a variety of reasons, and then a lot of teams have stopped competing, but their number doesn't get reassigned. Like I said, teams are free to choose their name and themes however they want. Spectrum was chosen by the students on the team in 2011, a little bit after I joined, partly because we didn't want to, we knew we were like the combination of the two schools, so we didn't want to use anything directly tied to Crusaders or Tigers. And we went through a whole giant list of names, and Spectrum's what we came out with. It ended up being purple for some reason. I don't entirely even remember. I think it was like black lights involved or something that was some part of what we were planning to do that never really happened, but it works. And the biggest thing is that Spectrum is easy to remember for other teams. So we're pretty well known in the community, and people know who Spectrum is and what we do and that kind of thing. Okay, so what will your students be doing on the team? So there is a big variety of tasks that happen on Spectrum. So it's not just that we build a robot, it's much closer to that we're a small company organization. Like we have different, we're not really departments because our structure is not nearly that organized on purpose. So people can kind of move around and do a little bit of everything. But there's a lot happening all the time. So task assignments are intentionally designed to allow students to reach out and branch out and kind of try different things before deciding if they want to kind of focus on anything. We're not going to like force them to be like, okay, I only do the electronics or something like that. We want people to be like, oh, learn the beginning of electronics, see if it's something you're excited about. Learn the beginning of CAD and see if it's something you're excited about. So right now, and we're kind of in the process with the students, there's a lot of introduction and overview meetings that are happening, kind of just going over a lot of the different things that we do, so they can get a feel for it and decide what they want to focus on. Or if they want to just learn all of it, that's fine too. We really want well-rounded team members. Knowing a little bit about a lot of it helps in just being better at all of it. Build, one of the things we do have the students use tools and actually do build and assembly. So over on the right is a photo of our horizontal bandsaw cutting some metal. So that students learn to use hand and power tools. We also have CNC equipment. So we have a CNC router, a laser cutter, and multiple 3D printers in our lab. We also have to keep the shop organized and clean and all of that. And there's also a lot of assembly of the actual robot and putting everything together too. There's also a little bit of woodwork. We have to build the practice elements for the field. So we'll build pretty large wooden contraptions every year that we practice on that replicate the full metal and plastic ones on the real field. There's also a lot of design. So this is one of the main focuses of our team. It takes a lot of time to do, is actually learning how to do all the design aspects. So a ton of the concepts and kind of practical aspects of mechanical engineering get learned while the students are learning design. We'll teach through computer-aided design. We use both Onshape, which is an online CAD program, and SolidWorks. And we'll learn how to do the full 3D model of the robots, or parts of the robots, because everyone's working together. It's not one person CADs the whole robot. It's everybody or multiple people working to CAD the entire thing. Controls. So controls is learning the ways that the robot, all the electronics work and wiring up the robot, and then also how we program the robot. The robots also use pneumatics, which is compressed air, to be able to move certain parts of the robot and get some motion that way too. So all of that falls under controls. So there is some amount of electrical engineering and then programming and computer science as well. Here's where we start getting the things that people don't normally, if we just say we do robots, this is where we start getting the things that people don't necessarily assume we actually do. strategy is probably one of the most important things on an FRC team that gets overlooked by a lot of teams. We have to determine at the beginning of the year, we're given like the rule book and we're told what the game's going to be, and we have to determine what do we actually want the robot to do, right? So not just how is it going to do it, but how do we want to play it, what the robot's going to look like, kind of what the robot's going to be able to function, the task it's going to do. We have to figure out how to prioritize all of that and choose what to actually design. So that's part of strategy. We also have to determine how we're going to play every match. So what are the best roles for not just our robot, but our partner robots too? Like how can we best work with our partners to beat the other alliance? We collect a ton of data on every robot at every event we go to. So we have students in the stands at the event. Basically, each student or a student is assigned to each robot playing, and they're marking down how much points the robot scores, what the other robot's doing. They're taking notes on them. We know a lot of information about everyone at the events we go to. We have a whole scouting system that allows us to do that. So there's a lot of Excel and some software and programming to make this whole system to where we can gather all that data, make charts and graphs from it, so it's easy for us to see and understand. And then we also monitor matches from around the world. So we'll have students watching and analyzing matches from events that we don't even go to kind of learn how the game is being played and if there's things we can improve about our robot and about our strategy. Another big part of the team is media. So we'll have people taking photos, people taking video, people editing videos. We'll do like season recap videos and training videos and explanation videos, reveal videos. We'll show off the robot. We have people doing graphic design. So a lot of times there's logos that we make, or for the t-shirts or for banners, posters, all sorts of things like that. A ton of social media. So that's how we interact with a lot of the teams and kind of spread information about what we're doing. So we're on basically like every social media platform you can think of. We also have our own website. So we do website creation and maintenance. We have a blog that gets read pretty heavily, especially during the season. We'll basically document what we do every night on the blog. That's also a really good way for you to follow along and see what's happening. Another aspect of the team is the award side. So we'll go through and we have to prepare a lot of material specifically to show to the judges, so we can make so we can inform them of what we do very quickly and very efficiently. So we'll make a magazine each year that kind of describes what our team has done that year and what we've done in the past. One of the awards, we have to have a 7-minute speech that's given by 3 of our students, a full 7-minute presentation, and then they also have to answer questions. So there's a lot of communication and public speaking that goes into that. We also have to write an essay and create and answer some other questions. There's a lot of writing, a lot of editing, a lot of long sessions of like word choice and figuring out exactly what we want to say. That get pretty interesting if people are on the award side of things. Then we also have to speak to the judges in the pit and like be able to eloquently describe what our robot does and all of that as well. And then outreach, like we'd already talked about, there's a lot of prep and planning for some of our different outreach events. Some of them take a lot more work than others. A lot of the demonstrations. We also volunteer at a lot of the other educational robotics events. So not just the ones that we're competing at, which we also have students volunteer at some of the ones we compete at, but also for a lot of the events and competitions that we don't even do, we'll go and have our students be the referees or help run the audio-visual equipment and any of that stuff at a bunch of events as well. Not going to go entirely into the stewards thing. This was more for the students themselves, but we have some amount of roles of way people are responsible for certain parts of the team and kind of just keep the entire team responsible for getting a lot of things done. Okay. This is how a normal FRC season works. After we talk about this, we'll talk about what's happening this year. So this is important. Going into 2022 will be the next time this runs normally. The rough idea is the first Saturday in January, that isn't the 1st or 2nd, so somewhere between the 3rd and 9th, is what we call kickoff. And that's when the new game is presented to everyone around the world at the same time. So we're given the game animation and game manual. So we can look at part of the game animation real fast.
Welcome to the 12-minute recharge.
So this is the game that we played
asteroid
last
shower
season.
is aimed at First City. Using Alliance droids, planetary citizens collect and score power cells while traversing the trench run and boundaries to ensure maximum protection with an operational shield generator. Droids start on an initiation line and may be preloaded with up to 3 power cells. Droids operate autonomously during the first 15 seconds and attempt to score power cells into any of their 3 available power ports. While every power cell deposited adds equal charge to the shield generator, higher power ports earn more points. Drivers then control their droids for 2 minutes and 15 seconds of teleoperated time. Power cells are collected from one of the 5 chutes in the loading bay and then driven across the city to be scored in the low, outer, and inner ports. Droids must score the required number of power cells to activate sections of their shield generator, and then either rotate their control panel a specified number of times, or position it to a specific color. Near the end of the match, droids race to their rendezvous point to make their shield generator operational. Alliances are awarded bonus points for a level generator switch. The alliance that earns the most points wins the match. May the 4th.
Okay. So yeah, so you can tell this year's game was Star Wars themed. The Star Wars nonprofit group sponsored the whole thing. So I don't know what all the sponsorship details were, but that's how it got Star Wars themed. So in addition to that game animation, we'll also get the full manual. We're not going to go through that. It's 100-something pages. It has all the exact details of how the field and robots and everything have to look and be and everything like that. There's a lot of open-endedness in what the robots and how you can design them. So they all, most of the time, they all look different because it's all what the teams choose to build and how they choose to design their robot. And so that's when we get to begin designing and building and understanding the game. So we don't know basically anything until that point in a normal season. And then from then on until we go to our competition is basically known as build season. So that is normally about a month and a half, a little bit more, sometimes 2 months. It just kind of depends on when our first event is. But it's really, really fast. So we do all the strategy analysis to figure out how we're going to play the game. We do all the full 3D designs in the CAD software. We manufacture and assemble the full robot. We program the robot, and then we also test and practice with the robot as much as we can before our first event. So a lot of stuff has to happen very, very quickly. The competition season is another about a month and a half, sometimes close to 2 months, or the district and regional system is about a month and a half. So there are different weeks of the events that are happening all around the world. Normally, the starts about right at the beginning of March, sometime the beginning of or the end of February, goes through mid-April. We're in what's known as a district system. So we have our schedule basically allows us to go to 2 district events. And if we do well enough there, which we have been the last 2 years, we've been doing pretty well, we get to go to the state championship or district championship. For us, it's the first in Texas championship, but it also includes New Mexico because they only had a few teams, so they're joined in with us. And then that happens at early April normally. And then from there, if we do well enough, we go on to the World Championship, which has been in Houston since 2017. So it's been super easy to get to for us. We don't have to travel very far because it's just downtown at George R. Brown. World Championship has about 400 teams. So teams from all around the world come. We're split into different divisions, similar to how the NCAA basketball tournament is split into the 4 regions. We're split into 6 divisions. In 2019, we were the winners of our division, so kind of making the Final Four for the NCAA basketball tournament. So that was by far the best we've ever done. So that was a very exciting time. So we got to play kind of on the finals field. And then after the World Championship concludes in April, from then until really November, November, December is what we call the off season. So now the official events are over. We'll have unofficial events roughly one a month from June to about November, October, sometime in there. We'll hold our event normally is in mid-July now. So we have an event called the Texas Robotic Invitational that we do in the Strake Jesuit gyms. And we'll have 36 to 40 teams from largely Texas, but we've had teams come from, we have a lot of teams from Louisiana, we've had teams from Arkansas, and we're getting more and more teams from around the US coming to our event as they're hearing about how good and fun the event is. And then we'll also do events. We go to Indiana most summers for the Indiana Robotics Invitational. And then a lot of other events we'll have in Texas. We normally go to Louisiana for one, and things like that we'll do throughout the offseason. Those ones are mostly just to practice and prepare students. Students can have different roles, different drivers, all of that kind of thing, and they can get they can learn different parts of the team at a lot of the off-season events. Okay, so now where do things get more complicated? So for 2021, we are continuing to be very flexible. So no single meeting is almost ever required for your students. We do want them to come as much as they can, as much as they want to come. And if they can't, they can put in effort to do things. If they can't be at the same times where we're actually meeting live, there's a lot we can do. We have recordings of most stuff now because a lot of it's over Zoom, or all of it's over Zoom right now. So we definitely love for them to participate as much as they can, but we don't expect everyone to come to every meeting. There's no way that would make sense. We take a lot of time. Training sessions are recorded so people can watch them later. There is still a ton of uncertainty based on COVID. So our team, because of the way the team normally operates, because we have students from both schools, because we have to all be in a very, very close environment most of the time. Like a lot of times we're working all around the same robot, around the same table. It doesn't make sense for us to be anywhere close to the first people back. So for now, we are Zoom until further notice. We don't know when that time will be. I don't have any prediction of when it'll be. There's way too much stuff to happen. The schools aren't 50% back yet. We still have a long way to go before we're there. I don't know when that is. I think there's some point in the future, I think we'll have at least small groups able to meet and do some hands-on in-person training with smaller groups. I don't know when that'll start. And I have no idea about when we'll be able to do anything close to normal operations. Our normal schedule is basically meeting every single day after school. Well, students can come in and work on different projects, and we don't really keep track of people, and none of that stuff really works in the time that we're in right now. But luckily, there is a lot to be done and a lot to be taught virtually that we can do. So we've been having Zoom sessions since our in-person meetings stopped in middle of March. So we've had Zooms all through the end of last semester and all through the summer. We've had students working on different projects, doing different things, being able to do trainings, and all sorts of things like that. So a lot of the programming training and things we don't need to be in person to do. They can be doing them on their computers at home. A lot of the CAD training, the same thing. So right now we can't have them actually working with the tools, but in reality, that's such a small part of what we do, even when we're in the lab. So much of it is we're just on the computers anyway, that doing it over Zoom is the right and smart thing to do for now. Our schedule right now is we basically, we have a Zoom room that opens every day about 3, sometime right around when school ends. And students are welcome to come in and join. It's kind of just the chit chat, social. There may be some small training stuff we talk about, topics that are going around either with the team or with the rest of the FRC community. Like we'll show like robots and other things that people have had and talk about them. Whatever news is coming out, that kind of stuff about the robot competition and things. We also know this is the time where now that we're back into hybrid, whatever, people are able to be driving back and forth. So we understand that. So this is just kind of not really structured time, but kids are able to socialize, which they're not getting a ton of right now. So this is useful for a lot of them for that. And just kind of hang out, discuss things. We have games and things. The team has a bunch of social stuff happening. There's like a online Risk type game that's been being played since March that should have another one starting up soon. The team has a fantasy football league. There's different games that get played. There's all sorts of stuff that we can do to kind of build some of that teamwork and camaraderie and stuff like that. And then at 4, this started last Monday, so we're a week and a half into this. There's basically a specific training session from 4 to 5. I try to keep it to 5 as much as I can. It extends a little bit if I run over. That are about a specific topic every day. So then the students can see which ones they want to come to. For new students, controls, the other section training, and the beginner design and CAD training are the 3 that I've basically been like emphasizing, because those are the ones that kind of started with the assumption that they didn't know anything, they haven't been on the team before, and we're kind of walking them through step by step. Our Tuesdays and Fridays are more geared towards our returning students who have been doing this for a little bit longer, and were more active on the team last year. So we have some of the students who may have been on the team last year, but only for a little bit, and they're still figuring out these ones, but they can come to the other 3 and build out their knowledge base a lot more. Everyone's welcome to all of them. A lot of the veterans sit through some of the old ones because we're filling in their knowledge gaps too. And these all get recorded and put up on our YouTube channel for anyone to see afterwards. There's a Google Classroom that has all the slide decks and these videos in it. And some of them will have even little like quizzes and stuff, so I can understand kind of where the students are and if I need to go back and cover things, or add stuff or figure out what students are interested in learning and that kind of thing. Couple things before I open it up to questions. If you have a company that's interested in building some more relationship with our team in some way, we're open to a lot of different things. We've had different parent companies and organizations work with us in different ways, from either helping with volunteers at some of the events we put on, matching donations, that type of thing, volunteer hour donations, like Exxon has a volunteer program and things that we've had where we're able to get grants or sponsorship from companies because of that. Demos, we've gone out and demoed at some companies and things like that if we want to get whatever works for people. Company picnics, we've done all sorts of different things. If people are interested in coming and presenting and talking about what they do, if they have a STEM or engineer career, or if they're just something that they think our students will be excited about, reach out. We can do it, especially over Zoom. It's super easy to schedule stuff, so we're happy to do that right now. And then if you're interested in having internships or scholarship opportunities, we can work through that as well. One of the questions that I don't ever have a slide for because I forget about, the way costs work is students basically only pay for their own way largely. So they'll pay a portion of travel expenses. So most trips we ask the students to pay for a portion, their share of whatever the hotel situation is. So it's normally $4 to a room. So it's a quarter of whatever the hotel cost is for their room. And then their apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, polos, whatever they're interested in buying. We do ask the students buy at least two to three t-shirts for the events we go to. But then after that, everything else is up to them if they want to. We won't be doing that until we're back in the lab because all the stuff's in the lab. Other questions I can answer? And yes, this specific presentation is recorded, and basically almost every other Zoom we do is recorded other than like the chit chat ones. All the training ones and things are recorded.
Yeah, hi. So that was my biggest question. If the individual afternoon classes are recorded, where say she could watch them all on Saturday if she's busy doing
absolutely. Yeah, and then those are recorded, and then if we didn't mention here, so we have a team Slack that all the students should have joined. So that's our main communication platform, because we have two different schools, so it doesn't make sense to do us on like their platforms, my SA, SJ. It gets really weird to add people back and forth. So we have been using Slack for a long time, and that lets them ask any questions they have and get updated about what's happening. So then if they watch something and they have a question, they can just post in there. They can come to one of the other Zooms and ask, and we can get explanations and help keep them on track, even if they're missing stuff on the 4 to 5 time.
So my other question is, I've been an FLL coach for 5 years now.
Cool.
In our middle school, and in that group, it's heavily frowned upon about the adults really doing anything.
That is not. It's the entire opposite in FRC.
Okay. Yeah. I was having a hard time understanding that part.
It is correct. Yeah. FLL, it's specifically those students. FRC was built, so actually it's it's kind of moved in the last, whatever, we're almost 30 years in now, started in 92. So back in 1992, the vast majority of teams actually built the robots and things at corporations. So the engineers were basically doing almost everything and the students were just watching. And since then it's been moving in, we've been able to get technologies a lot more, right? We can have the students do a lot more. But there's no specific rule about who builds what, who touches what, whatever. So the way our team operates, largely I'm the only technical mentor for the most part. Like we've had, at different times we've had parents and stuff help a little bit. But largely it's me and the students. And then so we'll have subsystem managers most seasons. So we'll divide up the robot into different kind of like subsystems. Veteran students who have been on the team for a while will be in charge of like managing their specific subsystem. And then I'll work to make sure that they're communicating and that the whole robot assembly is getting put together properly. And then also a lot of training and showing students how to do things and all of that.
And then at the competition, there's no project component like you have in FLL. It's just outreach kinds of things that you're doing.
No project. Yeah. So the chairman's award is the big like presentation award, but it's basically an award for the overall role model team type thing. So we do a presentation for it and things, but it's not like a research project or anything like that.
Right.
Any other questions? Have I gotten that good at answering all the questions?
Will this presentation be shared?
Yes. So it will be recorded, it'll get put on YouTube, and then I will send the link out to all of you.
Okay.